Hi, I'm Johnny Smith, host of the Inquisitive Minds podcast. Join me while we interview all manner of interesting people from all walks of life. Some conspiracy, some cryptozoology, and just some things that are just plain interesting. Every week, I'll have someone with me who is an expert in their specific field.
This is the Inquisitive Minds podcast.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Inquisitive Minds podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Smith. We have a very interesting episode for you today, but before we get into that, I'd like to give some updates from last week with our guest, Brian Seach, about Beaver Valley Paracon. That's Saturday, October 5th. I just wanted to let you guys know who the guest speakers were that day. We have, first at 10:45, Brian and Terry Seach with Strange Tales of Beaver County. Excuse me. Then at 12, we have Dave and Carrie Rupert and Ryan Cavaline. Forgive me if I say that wrong. Legend Hunters and Film Adventures. At 1:30, we have Patty Wilson, The Difference Between Ghosts and Demons. At 2:45, we have hopefully future guest Fred Saluga speaking about paranormal Bigfoot. And then at 4 o'clock, we have Tony Labergany. I know I screwed that up, and I'm sorry. And his topic is From the Middle of Nowhere, Come the Shadow People. Today, with me, we have a very fascinating guest that I tried as I might to wrap my head around everything he was hitting me with. He had so much information. There's voodoo involved. There's occult magic involved. There's potentially haunted house involved. He's a black metal musician himself. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podcast, Dustin Jozef Comorski.
Hello there. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, thanks for coming, Justin. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Just staying out of the heat, but
Okay, fair enough. It's pretty warm out there today. So we started talking initially when you said it was, and I just said grandfather because it was easier, but essentially your great uncle was a voodoo practitioner.
it was my great uncle. Yes, it was in the 1960s. He started learning tarot card reading in our local area.
Now, when you say your local area, where is this?
This is we're from New Bethlehem,
Okay.
which is near Punxsutawney.
Is that like the middle of the state almost? I'm not.
It's an hour north of Pittsburgh.
Okay, an hour north.
So, yeah, in the 60s, he started learning these tarot card readings, but he was also a pianist, and he ended up going to New Orleans and picking up all this clairvoyant information from, like, info mags that went around during that time, which was basically your occult guide back in the day. And he picked up on that, and he started just routinely going to New Orleans and coming back. And he started playing gigs in New Orleans.
Now, when you say playing gigs, this was as a pianist or reading tarot cards?
As a pianist, but he would use the tarot reading money from around here to fund his trips back and forth.
Okay, so he had a side gig going up here.
Yeah, and we figured he picked up the voodoo when he went down there and started meeting people and stuff after the gigs, all kinds of stuff.
Now,
like
is
that.
he still around today?
No, he passed away in the 1980s.
In the 1980s. So you just have like stories and secondhand accounts.
I do, yes.
Do you know if there was a type of voodoo that he practiced?
Not specific. It was a very weird combo of the things he was learning at the time, because he was going through all these magazines that would teach you, wear this magic ring, do this weird thing. Some of it was like sketchy, the other stuff was weird, but he was messing around with stuff in an era that there was no guide.
Yeah.
And he'd come back to Pennsylvania where there was no teachings or anything.
And I'm sure this was completely foreign to everybody up here.
It was, yeah.
It was all shrouded in mysticism.
It very was, much so then.
Now, before we move on more of that, you had mentioned something about a haunted house?
The house I live in is, he lived there with my great-grandfather.
When did this house, first off, come into your family?
1909, my family built it. They were in charge of the lumber industry in the area. And then my great uncle built it, and then he passed away before he could live in it.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
And then my great grandfather bought it from the rest of the family for like $40 back in the day.
Oh, I'm sure that was more now than what it sounds
a lot
like.
more, yeah.
Significant amount. So they moved in. How long as your family was living there before things started getting noticed?
It'd have to be after his passing, more so.
Your great uncle?
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's just a weird place because not often do you have a house and a family for like 10 generations piling things in.
Yeah.
But we have things from Germany. We have our kitchen chairs are from Germany.
Now, is that where, especially your great uncle who dabbled in the arts, is that his family lineage, Germany?
Yes.
Okay. He was a full-blooded German man?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just curious, just trying to get context in here. So your great uncle who built it didn't get a chance to live in it, and then you got your family only started noticing events after your great uncle passed?
Yes.
Now, was that the same one who practiced the voodoo?
Yes.
Okay, so after he passed, which was in the 80s, you said?
Yes.
What started being noticed?
Well, his grandfather also passed shortly after him.
His grandfather?
Or his father.
Okay,
passed,
his
sorry,
father.
yeah.
Okay.
So then we had both people that lived there passed.
Well, you got a lot of family energy in that house.
Yeah.
You know, it's been about 75, 80 years of generations of people living in that house. I'm sure there's going to be some acquired energy over time, and then 2 quick deaths.
Yeah, and he vowed to haunt the place, too, before his death.
Your great uncle vowed to do
Yes.
this. Now, was there a story behind that? Was there a reason he vowed?
It was more just around his obsession with this paranormal stuff, and he would just joke about it, but he was consistent. Allegedly, he predicted his death and died on his death day, which is a stretch, but...
So it was not a haunting of malicious intent, more so
Oh, no,
I'm going to
yeah.
prove the paranormal.
Yeah, pretty
by haunting.
much.
You know, many people know, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but my wife died almost 3 years ago. And obviously, due to this show, we were involved in the paranormal and the occult and highly interested. And she told me she would always come back and, make her presence known. And I just want to put it out there on the airwaves. Kate, what the fuck is taking so long? Because I have yet to see any type of spirits or signs or anything.
It was sort of in that similar vein, I believe.
So when stuff started happening, first off, who started witnessing and what would you say was happening?
Well, in the 90s, our family turned the home into like a bed and breakfast.
Okay.
And ran that throughout the 90s, and we'd get people coming from all over the world to visit Punxsutawney to see the groundhog.
Is it still a bed and breakfast?
Not really, but I do music there now, so there's lots of bands and people still
Okay.
coming in. But yeah, we'd have guests, and they would get spooked. Some people would start making, our whole town started making rumors about it. It was becoming like notorious as the haunted house.
Well, in a small town, and this is not attacking your story, but that's a good angle to have, to be the haunted bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
That's an attraction people want to go to.
So I know one of the earlier stories, people claimed that a table lifted off the ground
Oh.
in a parlor room. There's lots of accounts like that.
Has there been any apparitions seen?
People mention seeing like shadows and stuff. More commonly, we hear footsteps. You'll be in the basement, the doors are locked, there's nobody else, but it sounds like someone's walking above you. There's all kinds of weird things that occurred.
Now, this is such a unique story that I have to jump around.
Yeah, go for it.
Quite
Yeah,
a bit.
There's a lot.
Let's just start here. You're a black metal musician?
Yes.
Please go into that a little bit. Tell us about that.
It all sort of connects to the story, too. I grew up and I found it when I was like 13.
Black metal?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it all deals with the occult, I started playing throughout my teen years. Then I moved here to the house we're talking about.
Okay, so you weren't living at the house
Yeah,
at
I
the
grew
time.
up in Albany, New York, but I would visit for my family and stuff.
Okay,
like
so you
once
were
a year
there
as a kid. I grew
semi-regularly.
up there, yeah.
Okay.
Kept playing as a teenager, but I started playing in the Pittsburgh scene about 10 years ago. I played in Veiled, Autumn, several bands have toured.
Okay.
stuff.
Are you currently in a band now?
I'm in several.
Oh, okay. You wanna plug some of those?
Aspirant.
Aspirant?
Yes.
Okay.
Veiled, as I mentioned.
That's Veiled?
Yes. Veiled.
Okay.
Those are my two most active. The other projects are still formulating. So
And what do you play an instrument or do you sing?
I do instruments.
What do you play?
Bass and guitar mostly.
Bass and guitar. Okay, guys, you get a chance. Check them out. I am completely unfamiliar with black metal music. I have no point of reference. Could you give me an example of what black metal might be for someone who's unfamiliar with the genre?
I mean, if you're familiar with death metal, it's similar, but it's not as well produced usually. But nowadays it is. It's very fast and aggressive, occult themed, sometimes satanic themed.
The closest I've gotten to listen to anything like that would be Welcome to the Jungle. And I imagine that's a very tame song
Yes.
in comparison to everything else.
You do like on-stage rituals. The theatrics are overblown.
Okay,
You wear
so
face paint. And,
So is it like if Chris Angel picked up a guitar?
it'd be more goth rock.
More goth rock? Okay. Don't mind me. I'm just working
you're
through,
good.
figuring things out. A lot of screaming, throaty stuff
Yeah,
in
some
there.
screaming, throaty stuff.
I imagine it's a hell of a show to see.
Oh yeah, it's very theatrical. and
It's probably a
entertaining.
hell of a performance. Now is that differ away from like the gothic stuff with like goblets and what have things of that imagery?
They use that imagery at times.
Okay,
yeah.
the crucifixes
Put
and all
candles,
that,
yeah.
and, pentagrams.
Oh
and
yeah,
that.
pentagrams, all that. They'll take decapitated pig heads and put them on the stage. All kinds of.
How old are you now? How long have you been doing this?
I'm 27. I started playing when I was 16 and
Okay,
trying
so
to
you
be
got some
serious,
time in.
but it took some time to get where I was. But
Okay, now how does the occult play into your music? Outside of the influences and imagery in black metal.
the lyrical content and the way the energy pulls and pushes when you're doing magic, it's the same concept. It's spoken of like bardic, the bards from old ancient times.
I'm unfamiliar with that. Can you? And I don't always know what my listeners know. And if I don't know it, I'm going to ask for some type of clarification. Maybe they don't know it either. So when you say like the old bards, I don't know like what that.
A bard was simply a musician that would travel, but they revered musicians as magical people because they could change people's consciousness.
Well,
with
music is kind of
yeah.
magical.
So it's along those lines. But when you're just playing music, there's energy there, and you play with that energy. And when you're doing black metal, it's like a little extra because you add the legitimate magic symbolism and rituals to it. So it's all connected in that regard. But going back to my great uncle, growing up listening to black metal, it already like taught me like what is voodoo, what is all this occult stuff.
So you were somewhat familiar with the
music. Yeah,
terminology.
the music I listened to essentially geared me up to understand occult things more.
Okay. Now, were you raised religious?
Not so much, no. My parents were sort of Christian, and then they kind of backed off into a.
They kind of
neutral
backed
stand.
off. That describes a lot of Christians.
Yeah.
They're pretty Christian, but under the right circumstances, they'll back off a bit. Here we go, jumping around again. You also mentioned that you are a pagan, a practicing pagan.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, it's a lot to talk about, but I also do the tarot readings. I do.
Oh, you read tarot cards as
Yeah.
well. I wish you would have mentioned that because we had a tarot card reader on here before. I think it was episode 2, and we did a live mini reading, and I would have loved another one.
Yeah, I've done readings. I've hosted a lot of rituals in Pittsburgh.
Now, how old were you when you started reading tarot cards, and how did you get into that?
It was about when I was 21. I really kicked the switch. Going back to this whole story, it kind of fueled the fire to get me into this. I'm a very skeptical person with it all, but I enjoy testing it time and time again.
I find most people, with not just a broad fascination with mysterious things, but even most people that have a specific thing, whether it be tarot cards or aliens or even religious types, they're very skeptical. And they try to look at it very thoroughly before they come to a conclusion. Now, whether we think it's wacky or not, they usually come from a place of skepticism and try and learn, and that's why it's so hard to knock people off their stances sometimes. They feel they've done the research, and you know what? If you feel like you've seen something or experienced something, there's no way I'm going to convince you otherwise.
Exactly, yeah. Whenever it's real to you, it's still real in some place.
Reality is just through perception.
Exactly,
really.
I agree.
You know, the world is a beehive that's constantly buzzing, but we all live in our little bubbles, no matter how disconnected they be. You know, just because it's a bubble doesn't mean it's disconnected completely, but we all have our cycles that we go through. Humans are creatures of habit. You know, we go through our patterns, we wake up, eat, go to sleep. I wish it were more complex than that, but those hours you wake up, you know, you gotta squeeze in as much as you can. But tell us about paganism. I'm sorry to be on my soapbox there for a bit.
Paganism can it could be a plethora of various religions and belief systems, but for some reason they all come together in modern times as a neo-pagan movement, and there's a huge scene in Pittsburgh and the area here.
I've come across quite a few people that have identified themselves as pagan, or even, and no disrespect if this is completely separate, but Wiccan.
Yeah, they're included.
And it almost feels like like a more natural spiritualness, you know, with the earth. And I've come across a lot of people. In casual conversation, I don't have time to start hammering questions.
Oh yeah, I mean it's very there's many religions in the local new community. You have Asatru, which is like Viking religion.
Okay.
You have Wiccan, which is a combination of Germanic and Celtic religions.
And I hate to say the word witchcraft because that's thought upon, you know, the black hat, the green face. But a lot of the people I've spoke to have described it as like a modern, more natural witchcraft. And honestly, witchcraft seems to get a negative connotation all the time. I want to come here on this podcast and make it be known, not all witches are bad.
No,
just saying, folks.
The vast majority of them are very relaxed, peaceful people. Let me see here.
So, the paganism that you practice, what is it that guides you, or is there a text you refer to, or?
I usually go with I'm all about the traditions, carrying over past traditions that exist in our culture today. I like to look for those.
Okay.
Like the days of our week are named after old gods.
Okay.
We have Moon Day, Tears Day, Woden's Day.
They all
Thor's
feel
Day.
better descriptions than the days we are living, because I know on Tears Day, I'm usually crying. What'd you say, Woe's Day?
Woden's Day.
Woden's Day, it's fucking woe is me all goddamn day. You know, so that's probably a more apt description. Can you give us examples of, is there traditions you carry out personally that aren't just like involved in things that are a main existence already? Like something you do?
We celebrate Yule, which is like jumping the fire log. A lot of the traditions are carried on into modern traditions, so it's kind of the same, but it's different. I mean, I do a lot of work in nature. I deal with horses. I work in the mental health field.
See, there's
lots of.
I'm trying to get this interview straightened out.
Yeah.
And then every time I ask a question, you open up an eggshell that leads to more questions. And it's so casual. It's like, you know, there's so much shit. I deal with horses, work with mentally handicapped, a bunch of. All right, pause there. Boom. What do you do with horses?
My teacher in the occult that I've learned, she's taught me energy work with horses.
So, and forgive me again if I'm being ignorant. My intentions are never to insult. Is that like concerning horse whispering type thing, like breaking a horse?
Similar, but with less modern
things.
Yeah. But it's very simple stuff to understand, and anybody could do it.
I feel like the episode of Rick and Morty, and I think it was with the dragon where they had the spirit meld. That's just all I picture right now with the horse. Just and okay, so you're able to bond with some horses. It's kind of reminds me of Nerd Alert, Radagast the Brown.
Yeah.
And no disrespect again, but you kind of look the part as well.
My girlfriend says I'm a crazy wizard all the time.
So your belief in paganism and your music career have become intertwined.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
I started picking on bands. There's like some bigger bands out there that express like we're big black magic dudes, fear us. So
you said you started picking on them?
In a way, I was
Okay.
testing their chops with the occult and magic and just seeing how they thought and reacted. And that led to me going backstage doing tarot readings with a band called Rotting Christ.
Rotting Christ?
Yes. They're very occult and deep, but
You know what? That's a hell of a name.
yeah.
Never heard their music. Just off their name, they sound wicked. Rotting Christ.
But I met
That's
Sakis. I talked to him about like magic and music.
Who is this?
Sakis Tolis is the front man of the band.
Oh, okay.
But I just spent months talking to him over just how he does magic with his music and how just pulling that crowd energy is like a real thing, even though all musicians do it.
So what can one do as a more of an occultist musician? Because as a performer, we all know how to feed the energy off the crowd. You know. I'll be honest, all my best performances have come when the crowd has given me energy to eat from. You know, so how does one do that with an occult influence? And is it stronger in the effect?
They bring more spiritual ideology, I would say, into the mix, but it's not like religious as much because everybody can feel that.
Mm-hmm.
The lyrical content and like the backing themes and the on-stage antics just creates a whole different environment that puts everybody in that headspace, more or less. So
once you get the crowd as like almost like herd thinking,
yeah,
that's what you're going with. And I'm assuming you're using symbolism and almost decor to like meld of what you want them to be feeling.
And it creates like a movement in a way that's not targeted at anything other than these spiritual ideas.
Right on.
It goes over some people's heads, but some people follow along and agree or disagree. But
now your tarot card reading, do you find it to be accurate, or have, I guess a better question to ask is the people you have read for, do they find it to be accurate?
Yes, it's one of those things where it's better for everybody to own their own.
Okay.
And to continuously read for like weeks at a time, and you start to see patterns unfold with the cards. There's 78 cards in a deck.
Okay.
Each card represents a human nuance, like a human experience that would happen in your real life.
Now, what type of deck do you use? Because I know there's different types of decks.
I use the Thoth deck, which was Aleister Crowley's deck.
Okay. The most famous and most powerful occult power bottom I've heard of.
Yeah, and I also talked to the Thelemites in town, and they're pretty interesting as well. I've never joined, but
all right. This is Inquisitive Minds podcast. Just putting on the brakes for a second. Who was that you were speaking to now?
The Thelemites.
The Thelemites.
The Thelemites,
No,
or OTO.
Or OTO. Okay, can you explain that a little more?
That is Aleister Crowley's cult that he started during his prime time.
Do they have a local branch?
They do here in Pittsburgh.
That is fascinating.
It's not a lodge, it's a camp.
Okay.
Which is like a before lodge type deal. It's not funded fully by the organization.
But they are a group of like-minded individuals
Yes.
that practice under Aleister Crowley's teachings. Before we leave today, I'd like to get some more information from you for that, because I'd like to reach out to a member of the group. They sound like they're along the same vein as like the people I would like to have on here.
Oh, yeah, they can go really hard probably on some subjects that I can't. But
I mean, fair enough. You know, each of us have our own specialty.
Oh, yeah. I'm just a mixed bag of a lot of things.
You are quite the mixed bag. Okay. Again, a lot of structure issues with this one, just with so much information here. So now we got a little bit about everything. We're going to try and start from the beginning. What does your mother, or I guess your aunt, what would they describe your great uncle as? How would they describe him? Because I'm sure you don't do those things without developing some interesting quirks.
My mother has a negative experience with him, more or less. He was relatively perverse and rude.
Do tell.
He would just say terrible things when she was a teenage girl, and inappropriate behavior for an adult man to do.
We're gonna chalk that up to guys being pieces of shit.
Yeah.
We're not gonna blame the occult for that.
No. But he was doing some sketchy magic too. So
Okay.
they're not always gonna be the best person.
Yeah,
But
yeah, definitely.
he was a great pianist, though. I found one of his old recordings on a reel-to-reel tape, and I remixed it into my program. So I have to maybe send that to you sometime.
I would love to get a clip of that. I'd share it on the page. I always find it fascinating when people tell me about their family members that have done great things or were good at something, because as far as I know, I went through my line of family and nobody stands out as being anything fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, I love my mother, you know what I mean? But that's as far as we got. Like, I'm like, oh, is anybody interesting? Is this? Nah, they're all laborers, all pieces of shit. I'm like, hey, all right, it's time to break the cycle. Let's start a show. So your mother had a bad experience. He was a bit of a creepy dude.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not proven because I don't like to say things that are
Yeah.
unwarranted. But it sounds like maybe a little bit of the negative factors might have creeped in his head as well.
Yeah. For sure.
Again, not giving him a pass.
And he was he's relatively a hermit. He lived with my great grandfather. He tended to the gardens relatively.
Kept to himself for the most
Kept to
part.
himself, other than going to play a gig here and there on piano.
And piano was what he did for work mainly.
It was piano,
And
tarot
tarot
cards,
cards
and
on the
then just
side.
kind of chill in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah, I mean, that honestly sounds like a decent existence.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's what you're looking for, if I could till a garden and go perform, pay the bills, that'd be great. I guess I got to learn to play the piano first.
And he had a Bible, and I read through a lot of it, but he had a lot of manic writings through it.
Oh, he put notes in his Bible.
Yes, tons.
Okay. And, anything fascinating? You said you read through it.
It was just a lot, but he left an Easter egg that he cut out, and he said, I'm sorry for something. I am moving on to my transcendental something. It was really hard cursive to translate.
So
but
he had a whole afterlife plan.
it was, yeah, it seemed to be that.
He was just crossing the T's and dotting the I's, saying, "Look here, guys, I'm moving on. Don't worry about me. We got some shit flowing."
And it blew my mind to find that, because it was almost a confirmation going back to the other experiences, what he used to say to my mother, stuff about dying and haunting the house. We had TAPS visit, actually.
Now, TAPS,
team.
yeah, for those of you unfamiliar, TAPS stands for?
I can't even.
Okay, TAPS is a paranormal research team, though?
Yes.
Okay.
It was their sub-team. They have a team that goes out, and then if it's really good, they send
out
TV
the big
show.
boys.
But it was just a smaller team. But they got 2 EVPs. One was on the attic, so I'm on top of the mattress where my bed was, which was weird. And they had a scream in the basement.
EVP's electronic voice phenomenon?
And in the basement, they had a scream, which was very interesting and terrifying. But
Now, did he do any work in the basement?
yes, he would can things.
He would can
Allegedly-
things. Okay.
Allegedly, well, no, not allegedly. He took a chicken that was dying and stitched it back together.
Oh, so he
And it
saved a
lived.
chicken's life.
Yes, but he probably was doing other things with chickens.
Okay.
If he would do
Do we know who stabbed the chicken initially?
no idea.
There was a weasel with a knife. All right, so far, he's a creepy old man, but he's saving chickens.
Yes.
It sounds like he's weighing out a little bit. And he died in the 80s, convinced he was coming back. Death is but a doorway. So he comes, or something comes back, brings about chaos to this bed and breakfast your family is running there. What stops that bed and breakfast? Is it unrelated to the paranormal activity?
It was unrelated. It was since it was a shared family house, there was disputes between everyone, and the upkeep and people coming there wasn't that much. So
Okay. Low business, family troubles.
and then after that, though, I moved in with my mother when I was 13,
Okay.
and that's when stuff really kicked off.
And
as
that
far
was
as-
the bed and breakfast house, the haunted house.
yes.
Okay, and you moved there full time when you were
Yes.
13. Okay.
And when we were moving in, the activity was probably at its most, which is what caused us to contact TAPS. But we were moving in, putting boxes in, and around all the windows we had giant wooden shutters that covered from the inside the window.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, wow, it's dark in here. We need to open this up. And we go upstairs and come down. All of those shutters are wide open.
Oh.
And one of them was like over the stairs, so it blocked the staircase
Okay.
from being open. I was just...
Well, that's got to be startling.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Now, you're 13 when you move there. You start practicing music at 16. When is it apparent to you, though, that not just things are happening, that there is some type of presence or force here, or there's some type of presence or force I can use to help me with what I'm pursuing?
Probably when I was 16, I would take his piano and I'd make a song by just like messing with the piano, putting
Okay.
it in reverse and doing stuff like that. But since I was a kid, I would do weird things. I would be like, why isn't there a railing here, Mom? And I was like 3 or 4 or 5, whatever. And there used to be a railing on the stair set, but there wasn't one there then.
Okay.
So as like a small child, children that end up there are like tripping out, grabbing things that weren't there before and putting them back to where they used to be.
Okay.
Some
Okay.
like
So even like
shit.
old memories. or
Yeah,
something.
like stuff like that.
Like repressed memories or memories from a different time. You know, they say reincarnation is real, and that oftentimes children will have memories of their past life, but it is either forgotten as they get older. It is forgotten as they get older, not either, because a lot of times it is looked down upon from a parent standpoint. Like they'll tell them, stop it, don't talk about that. They'll stifle what they're having as memories. And there's been many accounts, famous accounts of children describing things that they have no possible way of knowing from people that have already died. Have you ever thought about that possibly being
potentially, yes, as well as me being a musician, him being a musician. It's weird because it's like I ended up doing magic in the house after he did magic in the
Now,
house.
he died before you were
Yes,
born?
yeah.
Okay. How long before you were born?
About 10 years or so.
Okay, so there was enough time for I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
Him to get all the paperwork and red tape cut through to come back. I understand from the movie Beetlejuice, if we're to believe that, the waiting line is terribly long. But, okay, so you started magic at 16. When you say you go on the road and tour, do you have any situations where something may follow you, or you've experienced something paranormal on the road?
Not my music experience, though. It's happened before when things seem to be more heightened, or maybe I was just more sensitive to things then. It's definitely weaned off in the last, 5 years or so, but you just feel like that heavy air.
Okay.
Like you can cut it with a butter knife, and it's not humidity, you know?
Now, have you gone or spoken to any people that are psychics or mediums or clairvoyants?
Yes, I have a teacher named Sharon, and I reached out for somebody to get advice for all
When
of
you
these
say
problems.
teacher, that's in reference to...
She just showed me a lot.
Okay, she's just like
she
a-
gave me Crowley books.
Okay.
She's the one with the horses. She's guided me into finding sanity over
Just a
this.
general mentor type.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was just like a witch out in the woods in an awesome little cabin, and it was
Oh.
quite an extension of the experience. It was a very weird time. This was like 2014,
Okay.
which may have also been when my frontal lobes were developing.
Okay.
And that's really weird to say, but that's the part of the brain that connects all these things. And I
Yeah.
was going connecting all these weird occult things.
They say our third eye is closed off by, don't quote me on this, the fluoride in the water hardens our pineal gland and closes off our third eye. Just a conspiracy. I've also heard the conspiracy that we actually came here from Mars, and when we initially came here, we were telepathic or psychic. Our third eye was kicking strong, but over time and over poor decisions, we lost that ability, and now we're just going in a cycle of relearning it.
I mean, yeah, the Mars thing's weird. 'Cause you could You can see it was like a planet, and now it's
Well,
dry.
the thing about me is a lot of my friends have conspiracy theories. You know, I involve myself with a lot of people who think outside of the box. So even though I might not necessarily believe all these things, I hear these crazy conspiracies. You know, and just to be current, you know, the Wayfair one recently, you know, I seen it myself too. I can't say that it's real or fake, but I will say it's fucking entertaining.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, that type of shit is entertaining. And you know, there's so much going on in this fucked up world that let's be entertained.
I know, yeah.
You know, there's so much going on. Why not? Why does everything have to be so fucking serious?
I know people get so mad.
It is what it is. So, you've been doing this for about 11 years. What age did you start practicing paganism?
I've always been interested in it, probably. In high school, I would be acid true. I'd have a Mjolnir, and I'd defend it. But I didn't get too serious until
When you say Mjolnir, are you referring to Thor's hammer?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Much respect to that.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate that. Shout out to the comic book fans out there.
And then, like, you know, I'd follow the traditions, and I'd listen to Viking metal and black metal, which all talked about it, and I was
Okay,
all
yeah.
about it. And then,
You know, the death of a warrior and all that, and Valhalla Bound and whatnot.
but then I shied away from that, got into magic more in 2014 when I met Sharon, and she taught me a lot of things. I started reading books more and getting
So that's when you say
really
you would
deep.
start. You
And
started your spiritual journey.
And I had friends over, and I started pretty much, it was pretty psychosis level stuff, but my friends would agree with me.
I have a question for you. Did you use any type of psychedelics to explore this, like mushrooms or acid or anything
I
like
did
that?
experiment with psychedelics like years before, but the year I really went manic and stuff, I was sober. It was straight sober.
Okay, that's fascinating.
It was weird, but people were not arguing with me though. It got concerning, but not. I was just connecting things that were legitimate at a fast rate. I wish I could explain that further, but
No, it's when things make sense to us, we all know that feeling of the puzzle pieces fitting together, but not being able to verbalize what we just understood.
yeah, I was really good at doing that at that time. And as that kept going, I was talking in online chat rooms, doing tons of tarot readings,
Okay.
and just figuring out this mystery going on between my great uncle, just life and everything. And it just started getting weird because people were starting to listen more, and I was like borderline going to start a cult, but I didn't want to start a cult.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then I started doing the Pittsburgh stuff. I worked with the Pittsburgh Black Hat Society, which is a great group of
Now, what is
pagan-
the Pittsburgh Black Hat Society?
It's a group for all the neo-pagans.
Okay.
For them to get together. and
Where are
have
they
events.
located, or based out of? I guess I'll say.
They go to the Universalist Church in the Penn Hills, I think.
Okay, I would have had no idea. That sounds so
But
unassuming.
there really is no area or location.
Oh, that's just where
they
they're working
meet
out
up.
of.
They
Okay.
meet up and have events, which is usually just they'll have like little classrooms where writers will speak, and
Black Hat Society.
my friend Jamora runs that. She's pretty cool.
Now, what do they meet? Monthly, weekly?
It'd be like an event monthly,
And
either a
and
small one or a big one. Every year they do Pagan Pride Day in Pittsburgh.
Okay, I
Which
didn't
is
know that
quite
was
a
a
big
thing.
one.
Where that's a little parade going on there, or
Not really a parade, just an event.
just
more or less.
just an event to be aware. Yeah, I mean, true freedom means letting other people be free, minding your own goddamn business. So, welcome to the pagans. You know.
Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoy your day. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you a couple questions you might not have the answers to. A couple people reached out to me as far as the voodoo effect. Wanted to know, first and foremost, the most popular thing, did your grandfather, or great uncle, excuse me, work with any type of voodoo dolls?
He would make stuff
Okay.
out of frog corpses.
Out of frog corpses?
He would sew the skin,
Huh.
but that's an alleged story, as I said, because I was not there. But
Okay,
He
okay.
would
And
also,
the guy that mentioned this wanted to know if there was any stories of the effectiveness of these, and I was going to say voodoo dolls, but now I'm going to say sewed up frogs.
going back to that EVP of the scream in the basement, I had a Reiki master come and try to cleanse the house. But a lot of people felt that vibe of some spirit being trapped in the house.
Now, your great uncle, if he was there, do you think he would be trapped? Would he be there maliciously, or is he just there as like an echo?
It was something I thought of a lot. Like, is he trapped here? It felt like he was.
Have you tried any type of, maybe spell isn't the right word, maybe ritual or ceremony to try to release him?
Yeah, we've we did like lots of sage smudging, which is the go-to more or less, but that didn't seem to do it. But with like time, the Reiki master, I feel like he was passing the torch maybe, and I took the torch in some weird way.
Now, you sound like you're, and I don't know you that well. You know, I don't really know you at all, just meeting you today for the first time. But from your voice, it sounds like you accept that passing of the torch, but you don't know if you're ready yet.
In a way, yeah. Or what to do with it, rather.
What to do with it. I can understand something like that be scary, but also, devil's advocate, the possibilities could be endless.
Yeah.
If you're successful.
Like, I did dump it into music, but it's like I also worked hard to get the music.
Yeah.
It's a lot of... I had spiritual reward from the experiences I did have.
I tell you what, as long as it's working for you.
Yeah.
As long as it works for you, man. I know this is a rough time with coronavirus right now.
Agreed.
But do you have any potential gigs lined up at all?
No, they all got canceled.
They're all canceled. Anything online or anything like that? Where can the people find you, I guess, is what I should ask.
I will try to do some live streams here in the future. I talked to Veiled about getting together to do one. My one band, Aspirant, will probably do one in the next month or two.
Now, do you have business pages for these for these bands? You want to promo those a little bit?
Yeah, Veiled is Veiled, and then just like a veiled mask.
Okay.
And then you have Aspirant, ASIPIRANT.
Now, are they Facebook business pages?
Yeah,
they can find you on Facebook.
Yep.
Okay. Before we sign out here, anything else you'd like to tell the people? I'd like to thank you for bringing what I thought is a very fascinating story. It had elements of everything. It was quite the grab bag full of paranormal.
I wish I could get in more detail, but it's hard.
No, it's understandable, and that's what we're going through. We're talking to people at your level of comfort.
Yeah.
Any guest that potentially wants to come on in the future, I want you to know we're going to ask questions, but we're not here to look down upon you, and we will only ask what you feel comfortable answering, from your perspective. Like I said earlier in the show, if you've experienced it, I can't tell you that you didn't. That's the fascinating thing. A lot of people are looked upon as coots and crazy and what have you, but if you saw something, and that's your cross to bear for life now. So I don't know. Just think about that. All those people that are out there either looking down on people that are into something different or have experienced something different. Be careful that you don't see or experience the same thing. I don't know. You guys can find me at facebook.com/tunacanjohn or and Instagram at pandasmith827. I am also on facebook.com/Inquisitive Minds, and you can send us an email with any questions, guest info, anything you'd like to discuss, comment. Always looking for criticisms, trying to improve the show here at inquisitivemindspodcast@gmail.com. That's all the time we have today. Thank you again, Dustin, for coming in. Guys, check him out if you're into black metal. Check him out if you're into some interesting people. He's a cool dude. Shout out to Idiot Radio, and God bless. I love y'all. See you next week.